Have you ever found yourself stuck at the same level for too long and you're trying everything to the best of your ability and making improvements and you're wondering, when is this going to work? Today, I want to talk to you about the communication habits that people make that keep them stuck at their current level in 2025. And when you break these habits, you can create different outcomes than you have already. But first of all, before we get into the habits, it's really important first to understand what is a habit. A habit is a tendency that is repeated over time so that it becomes ingrained. And when it's ingrained, they're really hard to break. Benjamin Franklin said that your net worth in the world and to the world is usually determined by when your bad habits are subtracted from your good habits. So let's talk about what are these habits. And there are 7 habits, communication habits that you're making that are keeping you stuck. There are 3 of these are speaking habits, and 4 of these are responding habits. So let's get started. The first talking habit is talking more about what you're not doing than what you are doing. Understand that when you speak, the words you say manifest your outcomes. Why? Because the words that you speak are seeds. Everything that you say to yourself, whether or not someone's listening, every word that you say, you hear it. And when you say the words to someone else or to yourself, you hear it. And those words plant a seed that later on create the fruit of your life. So if you spend more time talking about the things you're not doing, you are walking past the things that you are doing. And when you're focusing more on the things that you're not doing, what you're actually doing is looking for the next thing to do. Most professionals are so busy trying to check off the to-do list, trying to look at the next thing that they do, that when they try one thing that doesn't work, they move on to the next thing. And that's what happens when you talk more about what you're not doing. You're looking at all the things that you could do and you're filling your to-do list. But here's the thing I know about making progress. And I believe that everybody desires to be productive in 2025, desires to thrive in 2025. And the biggest mistake that professionals make is that they're overlooking the things that they are doing that may be working, but they're just not working yet. So when things aren't working for you yet, they need to be optimized. And it doesn't mean that you need to do it harder or that you need to do it differently. It means that you need to become the person for whom that activity will work for. So when you're busy talking about the things you're not doing, you are minimizing and not looking at the things that you are doing, that through consistent, persistent effort and through becoming the person who can do those things, that those two can start to work for you. So that's the number one habit, the first habit, the talking habit that will keep people stuck in 2025. The second talking habit is talking more about your failures than you talk about your successes. Now, we have been so programmed to look at our failures because every leadership guru out there tells you got to learn from your failures. You got to reflect on your failures. You got to turn your failures into successes. So as a result of what we've learned to do, in our language and in our words, we naturally talk more about our failures. But have you ever looked at what that does? The more you talk about your failures, the more that creates focus on failures, and what you focus on expands. It is hard to talk about successes because oftentimes when we talk about our successes, the successes that we're talking about are the small wins that aren't yet the big audacious goals that we want to have. And so it seems like, well, I don't want to talk about it yet, and I don't want to make a big deal out of it until I get that huge success, then I'll talk about it. But if you don't talk about the successes that happen in your progression, you also don't see what you've been doing that has been making that progress. And as I mentioned earlier, words are the seeds that you plant that later on produce the fruit of the outcomes of your life. So when you talk more about failures than your successes, what you're doing is you're amplifying the focus on failures. And as a result of the amplification, it feels like you're not making progress. It feels like the failures are bigger than the successes. And they are, and they will be, if you talk about them more than the successes. The third talking habit is talking more about what you have to do, you're supposed to do, instead of talking about what you would love to do. This one might seem like there's no difference, but let me explain it. What you have to do and what you're supposed to do That language is the language of imperatives. When you say, I have to, I'm supposed to, that is a duty. I'm dutifully responding to what some authority outside of me is telling me I'm supposed to and I have to. And as a result of me wanting to be assessed positively by that other authority, then I have to do it. I'm supposed to do it. And the language of imperatives leads to a language of inauthenticity, especially if the things that you have to do, the things that you're supposed to do, aren't aligned with the things that you would love to do. So start practicing the language of love. What would you love to do? What would you desire to do? And as a result of what you would love to do, what would you love to have? Instead of talking more about what you're supposed to do and what you have to do, and talk more about what you love to do, that also creates more focus on your own purpose and your own intention for your life. So if you have benefited from this and you really do desire to take your communications to the next level, not just for the sake of speaking well, but because you desire to be a leader, an influential leader, then I invite you to work with me in my teams. Because every single week and every single month, I provide high-level training on how to become the person who can lead effectively. And if you're serious about this transformation and you desire to thrive in 2025, then look at the link below this video, send in your applications, and if it is right for you, if you're serious about it, then I look forward to working with you on the inside. So those are your 3 talking habits. Now let's get into the 4 responding habits. Still under communication habits, but this is now your response to another person. So the first habit, the first responding habit, number 1, is responding with what you believe other people would be pleased to hear instead of what you would be pleased to say. And this one is so important. So many professionals spend a lot of effort in their communications with other people, saying what they believe the other person wants them to say or wants to hear. And this stems from the desire to be liked, the desire to be accepted, the desire to be seen a certain way. But those things are completely outside of your control 100% of the time. How others perceive you, what others are going to say about you, what they're going to be thinking about you, what they're going to assume about you. You cannot control those things. You may be able to influence those things. Correction, you would be able to influence those things if you build a strong brand. I don't have time to get into that in this video. Maybe I'll create another video on building your brand. But you cannot control what they think of you, what they assume about you, and what they're going to say about you when you're not there. So if you are busy responding with that aim in mind, what happens is that you don't end up saying the things that would please you. And when you don't end up saying the things that would please you, but at the same time you desire to get to the next level of your career, here's what's going to happen. As you move up and grow in your career progression, the more strategic you are in your leadership, the higher you go in your organizations, the more it's going to be about communications. The more time you will spend in your role on communicating with other people. And if you're spending the time saying things that don't please you, then what happened is that you've paved the path to your career growth to a destination that does not inspire you, because you're going to be having more conversations that aren't inspiring to you, that don't please you, than the other way around. So that is the first habit, responding by what you think other people would be pleased to hear instead of what you would be pleased to say. The second responding habit is responding with the aim of being interesting instead of the aim to be interested. Now, this might seem like a very subtle distinction, but it is a distinction. If you aim to be interesting, what that means is that you will try to say things and respond in conversations in a way that you're trying to have them perceive you as somebody interesting. But if you think about human psychology, what causes someone to be interesting? The only thing that causes you to be interesting to somebody is if you first demonstrate that you're interested in helping them. If you're watching this video and you've been watching this video up until now, The reason why you're interested in me, in my conversation with you, is because I'm demonstrating with you every minute in this video that I'm interested in helping you to succeed this year. So aim to be interested. How can you help the person that you're speaking with? Do you understand the values of the person you're speaking with? Do you understand the problems that they have? And are you helping them to create a solution, a sustainable solution to help them solve their problem? And the beautiful thing about problems is that when you help them solve the first problem, every solution creates 10 more problems. So continue to be interested in the people that you communicate with instead of trying to be interesting. The third response habit is responding with the hope of producing immediate pleasure instead of having the hope of producing purposeful progression. So what do I mean by that? So many professionals in their communications with other people, they desire to have immediate gratification. They want to be liked. They want affirmation. They want validation. They want their ideas to be accepted, to be heard. They want to be listened to. That's immediate gratification. But there's a principle called I'm going to call this principle the easy hard principle. So what's the easy hard principle? It simply means this. When you do what's easy up front, what's behind it is going to be hard. When you do what's hard up front, what's going to be behind it is going to be easy. So that's the easy hard principle. So how does this translate in real life, the practical application of it? So many professionals, ambitious professionals, I believe that so many of them desire to build meaningful relationships in the workplace. I believe this. If you don't believe, if that's not you, you wouldn't be here. Right. So professionals desire to build meaningful relationships in the workplace. They don't know how to do it, but that's their desire. And they believe that if I have a meaningful relationship in the workplace, it means that I'm heard and I'm understood, that they appreciate my ideas and they appreciate my opinions. But here's the thing about that. When you seek their validation, when you seek their praise immediately, what you're actually doing is you're sacrificing the future for the present. And there's one word for that. Sacrificing the future for the present outcome, the present pleasure that you want to have now. That's indulgence. And when you're indulging in the pleasing responses, I want them to praise me, I want them to validate me, I want them to like me, I want them to smile at me. So when you're indulging in the present, you sacrifice the future. The easy hard principle says you want what's easy right now, then you're going to get what's hard later on. So what's the opposite of that? The opposite of indulgence is sacrifice, which means that you're sacrificing the present. You are sacrificing the present for the future. So in other words, you're doing what's hard right now so that you can get what's easy for you later on. And that's why a lot of relationships feel hard later on, because so many people aren't willing to do the hard work right now. So what's the hard work right now? The hard work right now is to be able to say what's pleasing to you, to tell the truth, to be who you are authentically, and to show up and serve other people no matter what happens. You may be criticized. They may not like your idea. You might receive a hater, a naysayer. You might have some people trolling you. But that's the hard work now. And when you sacrifice the present for the future, what ends up happening is that over time, through persistent, consistent endurance, you move towards purposeful progression. Now, the fourth responding habit is responding with all the right words without having become the person who can follow through. This one is perhaps the most important responding habit to change, to break in 2025. Here's why. Because it is easier to say all the right things. In fact, I believe that you're watching this video because you are intelligent, you are ambitious, and you have successes in your path. And you're probably an avid reader, an avid video watcher as well, and you know what to say. All the right things that your leaders want to hear, that your higher-ups want to hear. Saying something is one thing. But here's what leaders know. Here's what CEOs know. They don't listen to what people say, they watch what they do. So follow through is more important than the words that you say. Now, you might be able to fake it till you make it. I don't condone fake it till you make it. Because you may be able to lie with your words, and you may be able to make your words sound good just by following a script and memorizing what another person has said. But just because you can say it well doesn't mean you can do it well. And that is more important in a business. And in order for the words to mean something, because words contribute to building your brand, in order for the words to mean something very trustworthy to someone else, you need to be able to follow through. So if you are saying things, every word that you say is a promise. Every word that you say is a truth. And that's what it needs to be. But if you aren't able to follow that because you haven't developed the skills, or you haven't become the person who can follow through on that, or you don't have the right experiences yet to be able to follow through on that, then don't say them. Understand the progression to becoming a leader is not just around how well you say what you can say, but it's also what are you going to do as a result of what you just said. If you desire to make more money, to have a higher compensation as a direct result of your communication, then I created some content around how your communication is connected to your compensation. That video is coming right up next. I'll see you there.